Hello and welcome to 12 Points Center for Women monthly webinar series. The purpose of our series is to educate, empower, and connect women across different stages of life, personally, professionally, and financially. Today we have 30 minutes to provide strategies for how to stay financially grounded when life gets messy. Before we get going, a few housekeeping items. On the screen is our important disclosures. You will also see a link to our 12 Points website, where you can read these after today, but more importantly, you can access future and past webinars hosted by our team. Today's recording will be emailed to all registered attendees, and during our presentation, we ask that you post your questions in the chat box on your screen. We will do our best to answer as many as we can when we get to the end of the deck. And for those that we do not get to, we will certainly follow up after our presentation. Now to introduce ourselves, my name is Tracy Hartford. I am a wealth advisor here at 12 Points. I have the joy of working with women and their families and helping them understand where they are, get a financial checkpoint, and help them plan for things that they hope to in the future, their financial goals, their retirement plans, but also to help them see what's possible for them. And I love being able to do that work.
And I am Deb Partiser. I'm a senior wealth advisor here at 12 Points, and my mission is to help women turn wealth into impact. So we spend a lot of time thinking and talking about how money works for them and what structures we can set up to support them, their communities, the aspirations they have for their lives, their children, all of those things, and to pass wealth along in an efficient way. So our mission here is to really help educate women and give them the tools that they need to make really empowered, grounded decisions.
So today we will explore how life disruptions affect our finances. We'll share actionable steps to help you navigate these potential challenges should they pop up in your life. So let's get going. The first thing to address today is that we need to normalize life disruptions because they will happen. We will discuss a few of the common disruptions like career shifts, caregiving responsibilities, losing a loved one, and maybe even divorce, and provide a checklist with actionable next steps to keep those in mind in the future. You may wonder, why does money feel hard when life gets messy? It is, in fact, the financial decisions that do become harder when emotions are impacted and uncertainty is at your doorstep. It naturally increases your cognitive load, thus creating stress. So impaired rational thinking is a very common experience. You worry about the impact on your finances, what income is coming in, what bills need to be paid, what decisions need to be made, and what are the priorities. Emotional responses to disruptions can vary greatly. Some of us like to avoid and pretend the disruption is not even happening. Some want to get it off their plate and make rash decisions to move quickly and just get it off of their plate. We're here to share that all of these emotional responses are common and expected. Your brain naturally does this to protect you. It's not trying to sabotage you. Before a disruption enters your life, we want to help prepare you by sharing a 3-step financial stabilization framework. This will help set you on a solid foundation and ready to face whatever comes your way. So let's dive into each one of these. The first step is to pause and assess. This is what we refer to as your financial grounding point. I want you to ask yourself these questions. What income in your household is certain right now? What are some of the expenses that must be paid? We think of them as your fixed expenses, keeping a roof over your head, keeping food on the table, keeping the lights on, versus everything, the wish-all list, all the stuff that you love to do day in and day out. And then what decisions in your life in the next 90 days can't wait, and which ones are really like to do and maybe make a decision, but not really important right now. Understanding what your priorities are for the next 90 days is critical when you're a rational mind, because when you become irrational, if something comes up, you start to focus in on what are the priorities that I need to focus on today that I knew yesterday were really important. Taking one step at a time will provide you some clarity and confidence. So when the unexpected arises, you will have this framework to reflect on. Step 2 is to protect your basics. So we want to get you prepared for that. We want you to focus on stability, not optimization when we think about this step. We want to think about cash flow awareness, knowing how much is coming in each month and how much is going out. So again, when something happens, you know what's changing in that flow of income in and out, and you're understanding what your fixed expenses are versus your all-in expenses. The next step is emergency fund. First, do you have one? If not, now's the time to start, even if it's only a small amount. That small bucket of emergency funds will be extremely helpful in a time of disruption. Insurance. Do you know what you have and is it adequate? A lot of people have work insurance, have private insurance, supplemental insurance. Do you know all of the benefits available to you and do you know how to turn them on when you need them? And do you have a contact person that you need to be aware of or any information that is helpful for you so in a time of need, you can go to one spot to get all of that data? Start to think about your insurance and do you have that in place? And if you do, how do you get in touch with them when they do need to be turned on? Understanding your debt payments. In times of disruption, it's really important to focus on the basics. Where in other times of your life, you may want to optimize paying off debt and getting that off your plate. But in times of disruption, we want to stick to the basics. We want to minimize our debt payments because we really want to keep more cash on hand to help you get through what might be ahead in the coming days. And that doesn't need to be optimized at this point in time. And finally, our final step is create flexibility in your plan. Your life is going to shift and change, and that should be included in your plan. Everyone should have a basic financial plan to reference, as well as your optimal plan to work towards, and maybe even something in between. When my husband left his job unexpectedly last March, we immediately reviewed our financial plan options and went back to our basic plan. This planning we had done in advance helped us feel confident that even with the pause of our savings plan for our optimal plan, we knew that our overall financial plan was still going to work. We also felt confident that with some time to build in, we could get back to our optimal plan of design. So knowing your options will help keep you focused, clear on your goals, and confident that you will get through this.
So talking about some of the things that are disruptive in our lives, we wanted to address them separately because they are significantly different from, significantly different from one another. So the first one to talk about is career change or job loss. So whether this is planned or unexpected, whether you're getting a promotion, you've been laid off, maybe you're returning to work after caregiving, all of these things can affect your income. And as we've said before, understanding what your financial landscape is and knowing the components of your budget can be really, really important to just stabilize you and help you to understand where you are financially. So this, if it's unexpected, or even if it's expected, can be a very emotional event. So it's financial and it's emotional. And whenever you've got combined stressors, it can be a double impact. So career changes can create income gaps, obviously some uncertainty. You've got benefit changes. Your health insurance may change. Your life insurance and disability that you got through work may be affected. And identity shifts is a big part of this. Maybe this was unexpected. Maybe you've left because of burnout. But the identity shift in all of this is significant. And who am I outside of my job and my career? And then a big part of this is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what's going to happen next, and fear of making the wrong financial decision. Those are all significant things. And when we're in fear, we don't tend to do as well as other times. So how do people respond to this? Women sometimes freeze. They freeze their finances and shut everything down. Sometimes they spend as sort of a cathartic, therapeutic kind of thing. So understanding how you are likely to respond can help you when you hit a situation like this. Make sure you're not making rushed decisions in any of this. And one of the things that can happen is you're under negotiating, and whether you're under negotiating your new job or your severance package from an existing job, that can be really significant. So what I like to tell people is negotiate like you would for your child or your spouse, and you can be fierce in those kinds of negotiations, and maybe more so than for yourself. So simple things that you need to do, know your monthly expenses. This is a through line throughout all of this. When you know what your expenses are, your bottom line expenses to keep the lights on and the food on the table, that's really significant. It can go a long way, just knowing that you're fortified and you have the lay of the land. And then how is your income source going to be changed by this? Is it increasing? That's a great problem to have. If it's a job loss, that obviously you're going to have to react to that. And then you're going to turn to savings. And hopefully, somewhere along the way, you've started an emergency fund savings. Looking at non-retirement savings and seeing how long those can last is really important. And it's going to give you a timeline for this to understand, well, I'm okay to stop working until X date. And at that point, I need to have a part-time job or some other means of gaining income. And just knowing what your expectations are for your income and the impacts all of this is having on your current financial situation are really significant. And then deferring, obviously, anything that you can is important in all of this. So decide what financial decisions can wait, and then understanding what benefits you may have to replace is also a key component. And another big transition here is caregiving responsibilities. So whether you're supporting other people, you may be taking time off to care for your own children, you may be taking time off to care for a parent or an ill relative, making sure that if you're caregiving, you know what you can afford to do and what you can afford to give up. Making sure that you're tracking all of your expenses. Anything that you're laying out on behalf of somebody else should get reimbursed, whether it's medical expenses, travel, and if the reimbursement can't take place, maybe you're caring for an ill parent, making sure that there's some kind of equalization that does take place. Maybe you are one of 3 children and the other 2 live far away, so you're the only one who can provide this care. Making sure that there's some equalization mechanism that accounts for your time so that you can get paid for your time. And maybe that's part of the estate settlement that happens. So being creative about that, and then assessing, what do you need for help in your own life? If you're caring for an elderly parent and you need to hire a babysitter, that should definitely be part of your expenses that you're trying to recoup at some point. To the extent that you can, continuing retirement contributions, even if they're small, can be significant. I mean, there's a spousal IRA that if you have money around and you can put it in there, if you're not working, you can still contribute to a retirement account. So making sure that if it's possible, even small amounts get continued to be put into retirement, because you do need to take care of yourself through all of this. Anything like automatic bill paying that you can do to lighten your load and to help you to remember things is really significant. So scheduling and automating bill payments. You want to make sure that your finances don't fall down while you're taking care of somebody else. And making sure that you've got your own budget set up, that you are making sure that whatever income is coming in is going to take care of your monthly expenses, and that you've planned for all this. And these things happen out of the blue, and there's only so much planning you can do. So being able to react and respond in the moment is important. And then thinking about what kinds of resources are available to you, whether it's through the community to help you as you carry the burden for a parent, or connecting with other mothers who are out on maternity leave. Those kinds of resources and help can be really significant, and just keeping you buoyed and knowing what to do and being able to respond. And then making sure that you don't sacrifice your own financial stability, that you're prioritizing not only your physical and mental health, but your financial health as well. So making sure that you are not taking care of somebody else at the expense of yourself and your own financial situation. And being able to say no. I mean, no is a full sentence, as someone said to me the other day, and knowing what you can do and what you can't do, or how much you can offer in terms of help, can go a long way. Yes, I can help, but I can only offer this much. And adjusting accordingly. Obviously, everybody's monthly spend isn't all significant fixed expenses. A lot of it's discretionary, so knowing how to adjust that as you go along is really important. And then in terms of divorce and separation, this is an entirely different situation. And here, knowing what you have individually and what you have as a couple are really important. So know everything that you as a couple have together. That's the best first place to start. And looking at your tax return is a great way to find accounts you may not have known about, or not because anyone's trying to keep it from you, but just things that are out there that people have sort of lost track of, like old IRA accounts or 401ks from old employers, things like that. Look at your tax return. It's going to have a lot of that information on it, and you can build up from there. Know what your accounts are, what your assets are, whether and how they're all titled. Are they joint? Are they individual? Making sure that you know exactly what your net worth is, what your liabilities are, and put all of that down. And then understanding your debts and who's responsible for what expenses. And this is before you even get to any kind of negotiating process. You've got to know what you have. And then you want to start working on creating your own budget. What do you think you're likely to get from all of this division? And then what can you start looking at in terms of what does your lifestyle look like and what can you afford? So starting to build those things out is really important. Professional guidance is enormous, making sure that you've got a financial advisor in place. A CDFA is somebody who can work by the hour. If you haven't had an advisor before, maybe the CDFA person, certified divorce financial advisor, I think. Making sure that you've got somebody who's working on your behalf on the financial end of things, as well as an attorney or mediator, whichever way you're working, and a therapist. Make sure you've got a team and communicate with the team. And the other thing is, you're pausing major financial decisions. Obviously, this is not the time that you're going to be putting an addition on your house, but making sure that you know the impact of anything you're agreeing to financially. And this is where your advisors can help you to show you what you're agreeing to and what the impact is, because this is both an emotional and a financial situation. And you're likely to have, excuse me, have one cloud the other, whether it's all financial or it's the emotions tend to get in there and change how you might make decisions is really important. And excuse me, I need to call. So understanding the impact of what you are deciding on is really important. For instance, keep the house or not keep a house. It's really a very, very emotional decision. But you need to bring the financial component into that as well. Can you afford to keep the house? What's the impact to you? What kinds of upkeep does it need to have? What are the embedded capital gains? All those things need to be figured out as part of the decision of to keep or not keep the house. So make sure that you're addressing both halves of the equation, excuse me, the emotional and the financial. And then in terms of loss and loss of a partner or a spouse, or a child. These are, I can't underestimate the impact that the emotions have in this realm. Obviously, the others are very emotional as well, but this one is really significant. And I think people need to understand is that your brain is working differently. So know and be forgiving of yourself as you go through this part of this phase, and really know that your brain is not working the same way, that you can't remember things, that you can't put things together the way you could before. So obviously delaying major decisions is a huge component of that. To the extent that you can, really understand what you can afford to do and not afford to do in terms of taking time off, getting help, all those things. There's financial components to all that, but making sure that you're shoring yourself up. And then while you're grieving and you're in the middle of this, you've got an estate to settle, and that's really significant and requires an enormous amount of work. So starting to gather your important documents. If you've had an estate planning attorney help you, you can enlist them to help gather the documents and all that's needed to start the legal process on this. And then gathering all the things that you need from insurance policies, bank statements, and everything else to assemble a list of everything that needs to be worked on and changed. And for this, it's really a matter of being as organized as you can. Again, remembering that you're not going to remember what you've done, who you've spoken to, what the instructions were, what you sent back. So having an organization system, when I work with widows, we start building a spreadsheet, and each financial account has a page in the spreadsheet, and we keep notes, and we list who's talked to whom and when and what the rules are and what's been submitted so we can track everything. And a support team is really critical here. Having your CPA involved in this is very critical. Your financial advisor and an attorney, if everybody's working together and sharing information, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Because again, remember, you're not functioning the way you used to before. And then part of all this is assessing your financial situation. What's the impact of this to you financially, and what can you afford to do? Maybe there's life insurance that's come into the picture. Maybe you can afford to take some time off of work. Understanding all that and you can't really make a plan at this point in your grief journey, most likely, but being able to make some decisions that help you figure out what your financial situation and what it is that you can do. Again, recording conversations really critical. You won't remember, and you won't remember what the instructions were or what was said. So I can't underestimate that one enough. Tracking your accounts and your assets, making sure that you've got everything listed out and that you have a good command of what's going on. Automating everything that you can is critical here, because you're going to forget to make payments if you're making them manually, and that needs to be as seamless as possible. You've got to protect your own credit in all of this. And making sure that you've got the financial support, but also the emotional support. Get help from your family, get help from your community, join a widows group, do all the things that you can that are going to help bolster you and where you can learn from other people's experiences. That's really significant. And make sure that you are also, as you do this, taking care of your own estate documents, making sure that those things are getting changed, you're revamping your documents, and you are taking care of your own estate plan in all of this. And one other tip for this phase is Social Security benefits. If you're entitled to Social Security benefits because you've got a young child who hasn't graduated from high school yet, apply for that as soon as possible, because that payment starts based on your application date, not on the date of death of your spouse. So make sure that you're taking care of that piece as well. So, sorry. So this one is making sure that you're protecting yourself. Get your insurance in line. If you've got insurance through work, terrific. Make sure that you know exactly what kind of protection that you have. Do you have disability insurance? Do you have life insurance? And then what's missing? What do you need to take care of on your own because the insurance isn't enough? And the way we work with people is to say, if your spouse was not in the picture, what kind of income would you need to replace? Maybe you'd be okay if you paid off the house. Maybe you'd be okay if you educated your kids through college. What is it that needs to be replaced there? And it may not just be their salary throughout their lifetime. That's often a bigger nut than most people need. So looking at what kinds of things that you need to take care of. And then emergency savings. Make sure that you're taking care of emergency savings right away, and that you're not waiting for some kind of disaster to strike before you build this. This could be as simple as there's a storm and a tree falls on the back portion of your house and you've got to get your roof replaced. You need to make sure that you have those. And we often tell people 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. If you have a family and you have a bunch of kids, 6 months is better than 3. And make sure that you've got an active savings plan for retirement. So not only are you saving regularly for retirement and maxing out where you can, getting your employer's match, but also having your own savings plan for all the aspirations that you have as a family or as an individual, making sure that you've got your retirement bucket and your non-retirement bucket, and that you've got an actual plan, and divert that money first thing. Make sure that before or as your paycheck hits your account, that you've got your retirements and your other savings coming out of there. And the other thing is estate documents. We can't underestimate that enough. Make sure that you have, if nothing else, you've got a will, you have a durable power of attorney, and you've got a healthcare proxy, and those are signed. And the durable power of attorney should be fresh within the last 7 years. So often people just go back to their attorney to get a new date, sign date on that. And then making sure that you understand your spending. Obviously, as we've said, this is a through line to all of this. The more clarity you have on your financial situation and your needs, the better off you're going to be.
So today our focus was to help you take the next step to prepare for whatever life throws at you this week or maybe even next year. This week, we want to challenge you to figure out what your fixed expenses are. Maybe you can review one of your financial accounts, figure out what are you getting for an interest rate, how much money is in that account, and how do you use that account? What is it saved for? And maybe even schedule a money hour with yourself. How does everything overall look? Are you happy with the way things are? And maybe in the month of April, you know, when tax season is done, because that's right upon us if you haven't done them yet, can you start to commit to a small cash buffer, a small emergency fund, just something small to kick you off? Maybe you can review another financial statement or document and understand, do you have your beneficiaries outlined? Many times I talk to clients who don't have beneficiaries listed on their work retirement plans. So take a look at one financial document this month and see if there's something that could be changed, tweaked, but at least understand what's in front of you. And maybe you can start to create a plan to track those expenses, because that is really typical. And like Deb shared, it's a through line through everything we talk about, knowing what you have coming in and what's going out. So start to track your expenses and find a tool that works for you. I use mine at a more of a high level monthly expenses report. So I just watch everything that we pay each month. And I have an understanding for the last 10 years, what we spent in the month of January every year, and then throughout the year. So it can be as simple as that. It seems like a big task, but it really, I'm paying bills every month. So I know exactly what's coming out, just tracking the higher numbers. So you have a sense of what your actual spend is. And most importantly, can you create your emergency folder? If you were hit by a bus tomorrow, what would your loved ones need to know? And this is super important because in our house, we have a book that has all of our passwords, logins that my husband may not understand or know what they are, because there's always one person in the house that manages a lot of the financial details. Being able to make sure that your entire household understands where that lives. Maybe it's a secure key password holder that you have online. Make sure that there's something in your safe, there's something in your emergency folder, a red folder, maybe somewhere in your house, that your loved ones know where to go if something were to happen to you tomorrow. That's super important. And I know, Deb, you have something to add to that as well.
Oh yeah, I like to tell people who have children, young children who still require babysitters, if you're hiring a babysitter and they're taking care of your kids, you always leave your phone numbers and everything else of where you'll be. But as macabre as it sounds, I like to have people leave instructions. So in your will, you have some kind of care plan for your kids, but it might be your sister in Chicago who's supposed to take the kids, and you need to tell your babysitter to call your friend who lives down the street to take the kids because something's happened to you. Or maybe it's as simple as they're babysitting and you're supposed to fly home that night and you're not back in time. So they need to know who to go to and what should happen in case of emergency, whether it's a large emergency or a very small one. So making sure that plan's in place is really important.
And today's topic was really about building financial strength and confidence. It's not about avoiding the messy situations because we know they will happen, but it's knowing you can steady yourself when these disruptions arise. So focus on the basics because you have planned and prepared for this moment. Building that stability is something that you can return to again and again. I think of it as riding a bike. It will click in when you're in an emergency situation. And most importantly, clarity is a natural reducer of stress. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need a starting point. So just do one thing today, do one thing next week, do one thing that gets you in that position of stability. And with that, we will start with our questions that have come in.
Yeah, I don't see any questions. If you do have questions, and you haven't put them in the chat, you're welcome to put them in the chat. And Tracy's going to flash up. There we are, our contact information. Should you have any questions afterwards, feel free to email us and we'll be happy to get back to you with some answers to your questions. This is also on our website. where we have lots of resources, lots of other webinars that are out there in recording, and you will get the recording of this webinar as well. So like I said, if you have any questions and you want to follow up with us, please feel free to do so. We like to be a resource for women out there. It's very important to have this kind of familiarity with what to do.
Perfect. Thank you all for joining us today, and you'll be sure to get a copy of this recording when we are done with that. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.